The area we're passing now is called High Banks. It's easy to see how it got its name. You get a great view of the lake and the Dixie from up there. Everybody wave. We're very proud of the fact that the Dixie was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in September of 2009, and a historical marker was generously donated and placed in Town Park near where you boarded to commemorate this appointment. Being a part of this prestigious National Registry will help assure that the Dixie will be maintained and operated for many years into the future, and will be ridden by many more generations of North Webster visitors and residents. You've probably noticed that many of the benches on the Dixie boat are marked with sponsorship nameplates carrying the names of those who have chosen to support the ongoing preservation and renovation of the boat. These nameplates will remain on the Dixie for the life of the boat and will be a permanent memorial to the individuals, families, and businesses that share a love of this historic floating landmark. For information on how you can sponsor a Dixie bench seat, visit the Dixie's website at www.ridethedixie.com. The area of the lake we're entering now is called Webster Bay. In years past, it was known as Backwater Bay. As we paddle back into Webster Bay, you'll notice a couple of tunnels that go under Backwater Road and lead to Backwater Lake, just across the road to the south. For a few years back in the 1950s, the Dixie was wintered next to these tunnels because the current through the tunnels kept the ice away from the boat. Due to the constant flow of the water through the tunnels, the water never freezes here. Nowadays, we leave the Dixie in the park where you boarded all year long. And in the winter, we remove the Dixie's paddle wheel and leave it on shore until we put it back on the boat the following spring. The Dixie's paddle wheel is made of wood, and the ice could damage it. But the boat's hull is made of steel and stands up much better to the ice, which, by the way, can freeze to a depth of up to 2 feet during a bitter cold winter. The Dixie is now owned by a non-profit corporation called Dixie Sternwheeler Incorporated. It's DSI's mission to bring the Dixie up to modern-day required safety regulations while preserving and maintaining this grand old boat for future generations to enjoy. Throughout all phases of the restoration of the boat, DSI attempts at all times to respect the Dixie's history and traditions. Dixie originator Joe Breek and his wife Eliza Plew Breek began coming together to Webster in 1901. Captain Breek built this boat in 1929. DSI maintains close relationships with the Breek family and former owner and Dixie captain Tag Huffman's family, many of whom remain involved with this grand old boat to this day. Much of the major work that's been done on the Dixie since 2007 is documented in the book titled Ride the Dixie, The History of the Dixie on Webster Lake. You can pick up a copy of the book while on board the Dixie at our concession stand on the lower deck. There's a small charge for the book, and all proceeds go to the Dixie's ongoing restoration fund. If you're ever fortunate enough to ride the Dixie during one of her twilight cruises, you'll witness a quaint Webster Lake tradition. It's customary for residents around the lake to flash their porch lights as the Dixie floats by, and we'll flash our on-board lights right back in return. The custom started back in 1961 when a first But later that night on the boat, The young man asked the Dixie's captain if he could flash the boat's lights as they paddled past the girl's house. The captain did just that. The tickled girl ran inside and flashed the house lights in response, and a tradition was born. Of course, the custom isn't practiced as often these days due to Indiana being on daylight savings time. There just aren't as many twilight cruises as there once were.
Thank you.
Matter of fact, there is only one Dixie Twilight Cruise each week, every Saturday night at 9 p.m. It's a very romantic affair, with the boat leaving the dock at sunset, usually escorted by the swans and the ducks. As we watch the sunset on the lake, we pass campfires and those flashing lights, and return on a river of moonlight under the twinkling stars. We forgo the historic narration you're listening to now and provide romantic music, usually featuring live performances of ballads and love songs sung by Dixie's singing skipper. Passengers are invited to dance on the top foredeck out in front of the wheelhouse, or on the Dixie's new hardwood lower deck, which makes a perfect dance floor. It's a completely different Dixie experience every Saturday night, weather permitting, of course, at 9 p.m. And it's a great, affordable romantic date because there's no additional price for the Twilight Cruise. It's still only $7 per passenger. This is Yellowbank's Point. The little boathouse here was built in 1958, and even though it may look like a garage, it's actually made to house boats. There's a lift in the boathouse that can lift boats right out of the water. Today, due to ecological concerns, you couldn't build a boathouse dug deep into the shoreline like that. There was also a large beach here called Rupel's Beach, sometimes referred to as Big Beach. It featured a long pier with a diving board that was very popular with swimmers. In the late 1940s, it became known as Ruth's Grocery and did a very good business selling ice cream and groceries to area residents and guests of the famous hotel located next door.